What's up, bros? I'm here for another Brograph motion graphics tutorial. My name is David Ariew, and I am an honorary bro for the day. I'm going to be sharing with you a quick tip using Mocha Import Plus and After Effects. It's kind of a removal type of workflow that I use all the time. So you can use it for both removals and additions to objects, kind of like I did here. And let me just play for you this spot that I worked on recently. So the concept is this girl is super excited about her new awesome phone and phone case, and she's having a blast with it. And then when her mom asks her, how much she liked her new gift, she acts like a typical nonchalant teenager and says, it's fine. And, her mom walks away. So, cool spot. The problem with it was that this iPhone case turned out to be a copyright infringement because it's such a recognizable pattern, and they couldn't use it in the spot. And everything was in the can, like they were basically screwed. So they came to me and said, what can we do about this iPhone case? I said, okay, well, you can either remove all of the jewels or, add to them and just pepper the phone case with jewels completely, just clone the crap out of it, basically. And so we went with that second option. And let me just kind of pop these on to show you. These are less kind of obvious here, these first two shots, because they're so far away. But this one here, you can kind of see, there we go. Now we've got a bunch of jewels, and there we got some more jewels and some more, and you can kind of get an idea of what this is starting to look like. So I'm just going to pop all of these on here, and we're going to play this back just to show you kind of where I took these images. And you can see, some of these shots, like we've got this issue where her hair is occluding the case. And so, there's some roto in there. There's also some shots where she's just spazzing out all over the place. So it looks like it would be really challenging, but because of this plugin, the workflow is super easy. So I'm just going to jump in and show you kind of how I went about doing that. So if we just come over here, let's start with something like this shot here. We've got these moving reflections, so that can kind of pose an additional challenge. So let's just go right in with that shot. So I'm going to drag it straight into Mocha here and just hit OK. And I'm sure you've seen, millions of people do this kind of thing before. So let's just jam through this process. I'm just going to select some kind of area here. Does not have to be perfect. We kind of want to avoid her fingertips because those are moving not in the same way as this phone is. So let's, this is kind of a planar surface here, and we've got some details to track. And we want to wind up this minimum percentage of pixels used. So this is kind of an unusual slider where instead of going left and right, you actually do these little scrubby bubbles. So you kind of scrub in little circles, and that gets it to wind up. So kind of a weird, nifty slider there. So I kind of put it in somewhere in the 90s is good. And in this shot, the phone is not actually, I don't think it's changing. Well, maybe it's changing perspective a little bit. So for this one, we can put on shear and perspective. I don't think it'll make a huge amount of difference. So let's just track that through and see how we do. Cool. So this is like obviously a very easy shot for Mocha. Everything is totally perfectly locked. And you can see that even better with the surface. Like you might be keyframing this shape around, but the surface is actually what will show you kind of the extent of your tracking data. And also, this is what we're going to want to use. So we actually have to grow this surface if we want to use Mocha Import Plus properly, because this is the area that we will be able to manipulate in After Effects once we get that all set up. So I'm just going to kind of encompass the entire phone here, and let's just play that back to make sure everything's okay and we're looking good. I'm going to hit Export Tracking Data, and instead of you may be on After Effects Transform Data here, which will just kind of give you straight up keys, but we actually want the corner pin data. And we specifically want the one that will support Red Giant Warp and Mocha Import. So let's select that one, and I'm just going to copy it to the clipboard. You can save it out as a text file. And let's just start fresh with this shot here. So let's dig through and find it. Which one? There it is. So shot 3, let's bring that in. Let's just drag it into a new comp here. And right out of the gate, I'm going to duplicate it because this will be the copy that we're doing all of the Mocha import stuff to. And that way we'll have a clean version just below it. So this plugin is only about $50 or so on aescripts.com. So really good deal. And I'm just going to come down to Mocha Import Plus and set it, instead of corner pin, we're going to go to something called stabilized precomp. And then I'm going to load it from the clipboard and hit OK. And I'm just going to apply it. And here it's going to ask me which of these effects. So you can use CC Power Pin, which is in After Effects by default. But Red Giant Warp Corner Pin kind of gives a slightly better result, so that's the one I'm going to use today. Alright, and I'm going to hit apply. Oh, did I already do that? I already did that, so I hit apply. And now we've got, it looks as if nothing has actually happened. So if I play this back, you know, nothing appears to have changed. But if I solo this here and cache this up, you'll see now we've got this kind of crazy shape. That was our surface. Like that was what was, you know, the extents of our surface before. So that's cool. What can we do with that? If we now jump into the pre-comp, which is, it's a stabilized pre-comp, meaning we've pre-composed that footage and we've stabilized it. Jump in here, it's not only stabilized it, but it's totally undistorted it and flattened everything out for us. So if I play this back, look at how crazy this is. Before, where we had this piece of footage moving all around, and it could even be skewing in perspective, it's totally locked it down for us and undistorted it. So that is really, really cool, and that's why I use this all the time, because now we can just duplicate this thing here and say we want to copy some gems. Look at how easy this is. So, you know, grab some of these guys, and I'll just kind of scoot them on over here and go like this, and maybe give it a little bit of feather. Maybe I'll grab another one here. Okay, you can see already we've got some, remember this little set of gems up here. Let's jump back. There they are. And there you go. So the crazy thing is, like, usually you would be kind of duplicating a still, you know, so say this were freeze frame. So we go time freeze frame, right? And now you can tell this is kind of a still frame. And jump back here. And it's not as convincing as before when we had it playing back. You've got all of these reflections and moving highlights and things. So we're actually cloning a piece of video footage. For instance, say we took, you know, this here. This is like this really reflective, you know, piece of the iPhone case that would typically cause a lot of problems when you're doing visual effects stuff like this. And say we just kind of copy it and scoot it over and feather it out. And, you know, duplicate this and yada yada. So now we've got this pattern that's corresponding to the rest of the case perfectly. So if we go back, you can see like this stuff looks like it belongs in the shot. It's catching all of those reflections. And essentially we're cloning a piece of video footage, as opposed to if these were all, you know, still frames like you would usually do. So, you know, go to time freeze frame. You know, typically when you're doing clone work, you would be using just kind of frozen footage. And you can see this stuff here no longer is catching those reflections and behaving in the same way. So it's kind of more of a dead giveaway that you're doing some kind of a removal or something weird is happening. Whereas here, these kind of blend in so much better. So that's one thing I love about this technique, is that when I'm copying all of these little gemstones, anytime that there's a lot of motion blur or the specular highlight is moving, what have you, all of that stuff is maintained. See this little jitter in the specular highlight? All of that is maintained, and we're just kind of copying what's already there. And so that's why it's so believable. You know, you're not trying to bash in some other image. You're just you're just cloning what's already there using the same lighting conditions and the same kind of setup. So hopefully you can see how far this will go towards saving your butt when you're doing this kind of work. So I can just go in and grab a group of these, and the rest of this is just really self-explanatory. Just duplicate this original shot, grab some of these gemstones and kind of come in and drop them in like so and feather them out. And then duplicate some more. And then for instances where I had a shadow here, I would just grab one of these guys that was already in her fingertips. So say we grab, one from here, and I'm just gonna kind of pop this over and try to line it up with, where you would think it would be. Feather that out. There you go, close enough. So let's see how that one's looking. There should be one by her fingertip there. Yep, so it's half in shadow and half out of shadow. So that's looking good. Though if you're paying really close attention, you'll see this one is the same as this one, but nobody's paying that close attention. And then, you can also grab a bunch here. So here's some more that we have in shadow. Let's grab these guys. Right, and then we only need one of these. So let's just let's kill those right there. Grab this guy here and move it on over. Something like that. And feather that out. Cool, so now we got another one there. Let's see, that's more convincing because it's also in shadow. Let's just keep going with this. So duplicate some more. I'm just gonna grab a whole chunk of them. So let's just grab like all these guys. And then pop them over here and just start fiddling with it. And then we can take our old guy here. There's one. Just shove it over. Sure. Feather this out. Alright, and then, yeah, maybe we even grab those. That one's cut off, so we probably don't want to do that. And just play with it until it looks acceptable. So like we've already gone a long way towards solving this shot. Alright, so let's try another shot here. So this one's a little more complex because we've got her hair occluding these jewels, which means, the track isn't going to be quite as easy, and we've also got to do a little bit of roto, but let's see kind of if we run into any additional issues with this technique on this shot. So it's a little bit harder of a shot. Let's see, my naming convention's a little messed up here, so this is actually shot 9. And I'm just going to drag it into Mocha here and hit OK. And yes, I'll overwrite it. And straight away, we're going to grab our X spline and just kind of draw a shape. Now we don't want to draw on her hair because that's going to be moving away, and so this should work. And I'm just going to track a frame at a time. I'm going to make sure to hit perspective on this one because it does have a bit of perspective shift. So let's just track it on forward. And here, this is the beauty of Mocha, is that we're just going to take these Bezier handles here, like this one, and expand it out. So this is not going to affect the tracking at all. You can just move the shape wherever you want, and it'll keep adding tracking data. And let's just keep going here. Now here, we don't really want to catch her fist in there at all because that's moving differently from the iPhone case. So let's kind of just give ourselves some room here and track it forward. And then let's bring this up a bit. Keep going. And her finger's about to come in, so let's just scooch all this stuff up here and just kind of finish out the shot. Alright, cool. So now, when we play this back, we won't necessarily know how our tracking data is doing until we grab this surface. And if you don't want to see this stuff, this gets really annoying. I think it's this button here will get rid of that. So again, make your surface a little bit bigger than the phone case or whatever it is that you're tracking. And let's just play this through. Alright, so it looks like if I ignore the splines here, and let's see, what else can I toggle off? I just want to see the surface because I'm getting a little bit distracted. So there we go. And even this is distracting me. So there's got to be a way to cut that off too. Let's see that. There we go. Okay. It's looking pretty good. There's kind of some moments in there that don't look quite right, but let's just kind of go in and see what we get. So let's just export this tracking data. Copy to clipboard, same old deal, come back to After Effects, and then we'll grab our shot 9 here, drop it in, duplicate it, Command D, Mocha Import Plus. Okay, corner pin, load from clipboard, okay, apply. Yeah, we're going to use Red Giant. Oh, I'm doing something wrong here. We don't want to use corner pin, we want to use stabilized pre-comp. Okay, apply. Red Giant warp corner pin. Alright, now let's see how it did. And the easy way to see is just jump on in here and see how locked down this image is. Looks pretty dang stable to me. So let's play this back. Everything is moving except for this iPhone. So that is great. And again, the beauty of this is when you have motion blur, I'm not having to, pop in a still frame and then add motion blur. We're just using the motion blur that's already existing in the plate. So it's going to match perfectly. So again, I can duplicate this, grab one of these kind of formations here, and I'm going to do a really lousy job of cutting this out because I'm just going fast. Say I squish it on over here. We don't need these guys. We're going to feather this and just kind of adjust it to taste. There we go. Sure. Alright, so just for kind of demoing purposes here, let's see how we're doing. So we've added that little piece, and if you look, we're getting these little glints and all of these kind of, unique moments that only happen in the live action footage because we're cloning live action footage onto live action footage. So that is was kind of mind-blowing to me the first time I did that. So obviously we're getting this issue here where the roto is, coming in from, we've just offset the footage essentially. So we're getting this kind of coming in here. So we could select jewels that never have the hair crossing, or what we could also do is we could just cut it there and kind of, duplicate this, right? So what I'm doing is just kind of looping the section where, so we start clean, but we're also keeping this moment here, this is authentic, where, we've got this whole plate is blurring out. You can see how it gets all streaky, and this happens at the same time. If this were just a still frame, I'll show you one more time. Freeze frame. When everything else gets really streaky and totally blurred, this is not matching. So again, it's the reason I really like this technique, and now kind of keeping the best of both worlds where we've looped it and it's still playing back. And you get the kind of noise from the plate, everything. Alright, so what do we do when we've got this roto? So, this is actually pretty straightforward. You could just duplicate your original shot, put it on top, and then start cutting around here, just like that. Or you just pop in here and kind of do your roto in here. So say I, just grab this hair here and do that. And this is what I ended up doing for my final shots is I would do the roto inside the stabilized pre-comp. And that just kind of blew everything up and made it easier for me to see. And also just because I'm working in this stabilized state, it's just a little more controllable and a little nicer. I'm just going to change the color of the mask so I can see it better, and you know, it's just a few frames. It's really simple. So here we go. I'll just take the entire shape and scooch it over. Something like that. And we can rotate it. And then we're out. So it's really just a few frames. And I'm going to, you know, it's already feathered. Okay, cool. All right, so now that we've got our roto in place, we could just take a group of these here. Say we grab some of these guys. It's whatever. And now you can see it'll sit behind the hair. And we can just feather that out a bit. And so it'll very briefly, the roto will briefly obscure those gemstones. And obviously we're doing a pretty crappy job right now, but hopefully the concept is clear that, you know, we can put whatever we want there, and the roto can exist either out here by cutting the hair out or inside the stabilized pre-comp. Alright, so I've got one last tip for you here. So you might be thinking that this was the hardest shot because she's just flailing all over the place. You know, the phone is just streaking out and going crazy, and this just looks miserable to track. And you know what? It would be miserable to track. Mocha would just totally fall apart, and you would probably lose your mind trying to track it. But the thing is, with this shot, you don't need to track it, because if the computer can't see it because it's so streaky, and you can't see it because it's so streaky and motion blurry, well, that means you can probably hack it, and you can probably cheat your way through it, because, you know, nobody knows what's going on here. This is just a bunch of streaks. So with this shot, I didn't do anything with Mocha or with Mocha Import Plus. I will quickly jump in and show you just what I did. Let me find it real quick. There we go. So you can see I did add and fill in the areas where they needed it, but this one was really simple. It was literally just coming to the clone tool here, and we'll just start again. So I've got my shot, and I've got my paint palette here, and if I double click on the footage and I've got my clone tool selected, I want to make sure that the duration is single frame. So if it's constant, and I start, you know, cloning something here, and I hit U so I can see what's going on, UU, you can see the single clone stroke is, you know, going for the entire duration. So we don't want that. We actually just want each of these to be a single frame. So here, all I'm doing is, okay, we've got some extra little bits to fill in. I'm going to fill those in. Option click, and just start cloning in some additional streaks, and just fill it out. And because each frame is kind of crazy and unique, you can treat each frame separately. So I go to the next frame. Okay, I've got some of these little guys to, you know, pop in there and just fill in any dead space, and then, you know, keep going. Okay, that looks fine. That looks fine. Okay, so here, now we can kind of clearly see the phone. So let's just paint in a little bit of detail there. You know, maybe up the brush size. This is, you know, the worst cloning job ever. But it's also going by so fast. So there we go. That's fine. There we go. So here we can kind of very clearly see the phone. So we just, you know, paint in a bit of detail there. So I guess the lesson is, you know when you can cheat, know what you can get away with, and don't focus on, you know, doing all the tasks perfectly when, you know, there are many solutions to a given problem. You may get caught up in some kind of technical detail like, oh, I have to track this shot. I have to track this shot. But sometimes you don't have to track this shot. And that's just kind of the process of problem solving. So there you go. In a matter of minutes, we've, you know, filled out the detail in this case and finished our shot when, you know, at first glance, it seemed like it was going to be a really hard shot. It's actually one of the easiest shots in the entire piece. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial, and we'll catch you for another Brograph Brotorial in the very near future. Bye bye!
Brograph.com, an online resource for learning critical components of Cinema 4D and After Effects, specifically catered to help you prevail as a motion graphic designer.
What's up, bros? Welcome to another Brograph motion graphics tutorial.
We give you professional time-saving tips, shortcuts, and lessons that help give you an edge over your fellow designers. Not only this, but our new Brograph Talks help you in your file management, hardware configuration, and client relations.
I love projects that scare me. When our art director comes to us and asks for something that I had never done before, man, it gets me pumped.
Join us for live sessions, check out our crazy Cinema 4D experiments, or just watch our Fun with Brograph series, where we show you practical applications for techniques learned in previous tutorials. Do this from the beginning, and your client is going to respect that, and they're going to respect you, and they're going to respect your time. Subscribe today and get automatic updates on the latest tutorials, tricks, tips, and inspiration brought to you by industry professionals Dave Koss and Matt Milstead, all with a slight dash of dry humor peppered in. Real nice banana.
Brograph.com, your source for tutorials that will help you thrive in the motion graphics industry. Don't just play around with Cinema 4D and After Effects, master it, and make money by becoming indispensable at your workplace.
We don't care how you get here, folks. Just get here. Subscribe now to Brograph Tutorials. It's pretty good, I guess.